Hi everyone, this is Ira with the Missoula Public Library's Makerspace. This is the first of a handful of videos that I'm going to be making, going over some of the equipment that we have here in the space that you can utilize once we open back up to the public. Today we're going to be going over the Carvey CNC router machine, which is really good for just kind of various projects where you can cut and carve into different materials like wood, plastics. You can even etch into some softer metals, and even carve a little bit into sort of rock formations. So today's project is just going to be a quick little 5 to 10 minute thing just to kind of get you an idea of how it all works. So stay tuned, kick back, and we'll see how this machine works. Thanks. Alright, so here is a little side view of the Carvey. Essentially what it does is it's got this thing called an end mill right here. It kind of looks like a drill bit, but with the drill bit, you just go into a material like this piece of wood and it just goes straight down into the material. With an end mill bit, it's actually made to go into the material and then move along the X and the Y axes. So with the Carvey, you utilize these two guys to take on and off different end mills. We've got different ones. Right now that one is an 1/8 inch bit. We've also got ones like this. So for today's project, we're just going to use a simple 1/8 inch bit. But essentially what this does is, this is the cutter, the software that runs the machine itself. You can import images that you create or that you find online. There's a bunch of different text that you can use as well, and then essentially what's going to happen is this is going to move back and forth as this plunges down into this piece of material and cuts or carves whatever sort of design that you set up in the program. Machine also has these clamps, which basically just helps secure the material down flat so it doesn't pop up when it's being carved. That's also what this clamp does on the side. Once the machine starts cutting it, this little end mill comes over here and hits this little thing to zero itself out to the height of the material so it doesn't go too deep into it. But yeah, that's essentially what this thing looks like. And I will show you how it cuts in just a few minutes after we go over the interface of the easel, which is where you set up your cuts and your carves for whatever project. Alright, so this is easel. This is the interface. It's web-based. This is what is used in order to create your projects with the carving machine. Easel is free, and you can actually access it. You can make your own account, just a basic account, by going to easel.inventables.com. This is our account, of course, but all you got to do, essentially, when you set up a Easel account is give them your email address and a username, and you should be good to go. We have the Pro account. Essentially, it's just you get a little bit more functionality and some more bells and whistles, like some extra fonts that you can use. But essentially, this is the web interface that you're going to use when you set up your project for the Carvey. On the left side right here, this is essentially your little project design area. This is where you're going to either insert images, use existing images, add fonts, or text of different sorts onto this area, which then will be simulated as a cut over in this rightmost window right here. So today I'm just going to do kind of a simple project using our MPL logo. So I'm going to use this thing called import function. I'm going to use this little app unique to easel called Image Trace. This is great for if you're an artist and you want to try to cut and carve your own pictures and designs that you make through the material that the Carvey can cut through. This is kind of a perfect example of one of the apps that you can use. So Image Trace is really helpful. It really likes JPEG and PNG files, but they need to be pretty simple and not super complex. So I'll just show you though. So we click on Upload File. I'm going to select Files to Upload. I'm going to use this MPL logo square. I'm going to upload it. And as you can see, once it loads, you want to play around a little bit with threshold and smoothing. Essentially with threshold and smoothing, this is kind of, it's almost you're playing with the contrast of the image itself to see how it's going to work in the easel interface for your project. So as you can see with my threshold going up, the logo for Missoula Public Library looks a little less choppy. And if I go down to threshold of 1, well, the font looks a little bit larger. So I'm going to play with smoothing though to see how this looks smoothing out. So as you can see with the smoothing tool, it's just kind of smoothed everything out and actually ended up adding rounded edges to the logo. I'm going to bump up our threshold and see what that looks like to 80. Okay, I'm liking that. So this essentially, what you're seeing now, the darker parts right here, this is what's going to be cut out of the material, and the white parts is what's going to be left in the material as the Carvey cuts. You can also invert the image. So if we click that, this will show you, oh, it's actually giving me an error for that. We can go over that another time though. Today we're just going to go with the simple image. You also have an option where you can do what's called trace outlines. If you click that, it should just trace the outlines of the image itself. So once we kind of like how our image looks, I'm going to click on import. It's going to import it into this workspace. Now I'm going to increase the size of this just by pulling on these little guys. And the first thing I really want to do is essentially group all of these image elements into one element. So when you import images through image trace here in easel, it's going to import all of these as separate little graphics. And we just want to group those just so they're all one design element. So what we can do is just highlight this. We'll go up to the edit, and then we'll go to combine to group them, combine them together. So now they're all one image. So when I move this around, it's all set up as one thing. And first things first, I forgot to go over this, but every time with whatever project you're doing in easel, you're first going to want to set up this material size. So today, my material size is 202 millimeters by 175 with a thickness of 18.35 millimeters. So each time you do a project using the Carvey here in easel, you're going to want to include these material dimensions. I'm using millimeters today because some of the scrap wood that I got, which I think nice enough, Home Resource donated that to us, so thanks to Home Resource. All the little scrap pieces that I got from them, we had them cut up by one of our maintenance guys, and they're all different sizes, so I found that millimeters really work well in terms of getting precise measurements. What you can do though, so here's my measurements right there. You can switch over to inches if you feel more comfortable with inches instead of the metric system, but I'm going to stay with metric today, so I'll click on that. So as you can see, I'm going to have to resize this logo because the material that I'm using today is not, this logo isn't quite big enough. We've got that centered right there, and as you can see right now with this, it's not quite getting all of these letters cut out. That's because, in part because of the bit that we're using. So if I switch my bit from an 1/8 inch bit to a, say, 1/16 inch, click on that, we'll get more definition there. But if we click on simulate, this will tell us how long it's going to take and the tool path, the carve path that it's going to take. It's going to take about 2 hours and 8 minutes to cut all this stuff out. If I switch over back over to the 1/8 inch bit that I've got, let's see, click on simulate, it's only going to take about 59 minutes. But what we can do is, right now our cut path is what's called clear out pocket, which just means it's basically going to clear out pretty much all of this stuff right here. If we change things over real quick, all right, so we don't want to do a clear out pocket. Let's see what some of these options give us for cutting on the shape path, cutting outside the shape path. So as you can see, this blue line right there just shows you the tool itself, what path it's going to take to cut, or cutting on the inside of the shape path. So let's do cut on shape path and kind of see what that looks like. It's kind of interesting. Not quite what I wanted. You can see what cutting outside the shape path does. And that doesn't really help. I think if we switched to a 16th inch bit, that would probably look better. Not quite though. So I'm going to just switch back to the 1/8 inch bit. See what this cut outside shape path looks like. It looks a little bit better. I'm not quite happy. So I think what I'll do is go back to clear out of pocket. I think what I might do is just take the cut depth down, which is this tool right here, so you can cut all the way through the material like that. If we tried doing that, that would take about 2 hours and 22 minutes, and the result would be you would basically have all of this cut out, so you wouldn't actually have an intact sign project. So I'm going to go all the way down to 4 millimeters. See how that goes. Click on simulate. It says it's going to take about 29 minutes. I'm going to play around with this guy a little bit and just get it to see if I can fit and cut a little bit better. Or what I can do, it's an option right here, is flip it like this. Design element, let's see. Not quite. Still not quite happy with it. So I think what I'll do is we can do what's called a 2-stage carve, which means I'm going to use a 16th inch bit to do all the detailed work on that. So what we can do for that is up here. So we've got our first bit right there, the 1/8 inch bit. If we click on detail bit, then I can choose this one. I think I'm going to do this guy, 16th inch. So if we click on simulate, so now this is a 2-stage carve process, and once it's done, we'll have more defined elements to, as you can see, the Missoula and Public Library, because we're essentially the 1/8 inch bit is going to be the roughing bit, as you can see through the simulation right here, and then the 16th inch bit is that kind of neon green, and that's going to be taking care of all the more defined letters. So it's going to take a little bit. It'll take about an hour. I might play around with some of the other tools, like along the cut depth, just to see if that cuts down on time. Click simulate again. Yeah, this cuts it down to 20 minutes and 16 minutes. I'm liking that. It's not going to cut too deep into the material, but enough to actually like have a sign that we can use. So some of the other elements that we can play around with too here in Easel is that you've got options to include different kinds of shapes. So say if we wanted to, for some reason, include a triangle in our design element, throw that into there. We can actually see, we can rotate it right there. You can actually see down here, this is the simulate area. It actually shows you what it should look like. And if you click on simulate, you get an updated reading of how long it's going to take to cut. So you've got a bunch of different shapes that you can work with. You have this, what's called a line tool. This is simply just, you can basically draw simple lines to make shapes. So that would be, it shows you right there, that's what that design would be cut out. What's cool too, over here on the cut tab, if you click over on shape, there's this tool called edit points. So this is handy for when you import pictures as well as when you do things like freehand drawing. You can actually choose, say, if you click on that, you can choose whether to have basically straight lines created from your drawing tool, or you can click over on curved and change this over your elements to have them be curved. I found this is really helpful if you import an image with kind of a lot of different elements and you need to play around with sort of the shape of it. I find that this shape editing edit points tool is really helpful to kind of clean up your design if you need to do that. So some of the other things over here in the shape area include changing the angle of where your design is going to be at. Changing the width and the height, and you can lock those values in order to have them stay static in the way that you like. And then you can change the position of the element on the design space right here. So I'm going to go back over to the cut tool. I'm actually just going to go ahead and highlight this and delete it. That was just an example. We also have this thing called the drill tool, which essentially just creates a hole that you can use. You can center that on your material, and that's basically just going to create a little drill hole through your material in case you're making something like a sign and you want it to you want to hang it up in your house. Down here we've got our text fonts tool. So under the Pro version of Easel that we have access to a bunch of different fonts. If you click on Add Fonts, there's just tons to choose from. So we can always add more if you'd like when you come and utilize the space, if there's a specific font that you like. I think I'm going to use one today too. So I think I'll use a simple one like Anton. As you can see right here, it imports it, and you can see on this side it shows you kind of an updated preview of what it should look like when it gets cut. Alright, so with the text tool that I used, I ended up making a thing that says MPL rocks, and I just made the depth of cut to 1.9 millimeters, and I actually used, it's called a combine tool, which is found under Edit. Under the Edit tool to combine both of these. So I could change my cut depth if I wanted to, but if you click on Simulate, that's actually going to increase the cut time significantly. So I'm going to do Control-Z, undo that, go back to my 1.9 millimeter cut path. I'll click on Simulate, and it's going to be 20 minutes with the 1/8 inch bit and 22 minutes with the smaller bit. Before I get to that though, I'm going to go over a couple of the other things you can access with Carvey and the Easel software itself. So besides the text fonts tool, there's also, it's called a icons tab, and this basically gives you just a bunch of free icons that you are free to use in your designs that the company Inventables made. So to insert those, you would just say click on that, and it's going to insert it, as you can see, over the top of your design. So I'm going to get rid of that. But that's pretty fun. There's some fun icons in there to play around with. Then there's your apps tool, which basically this just gives you some extra functionality using Easel with the Carvey. There's just a bunch of different things, like you can set up making a fidget spinner, and it will walk you through the process. You can create a puzzle. You can create a box using several different pieces of wood, and this app will walk you through that. You can add texture to your text. You can do a stamp maker, which I've done before with a patron. It's actually pretty easy and fun to make. Today we're going to use image trace, but I just wanted to show you this little area as well. I believe if you just have the free version of Easel, I think you should have functionality to be able to use some of these apps as well. If not, you are certainly welcome, once we're open again, to come in and use our Pro version of Easel to access the app library. Finally, you've got this import tool. We're going to use image trace, but this is also an area where you can import scalable vector graphics files, like files that you would create in Adobe Illustrator. You can also bring in G-code from certain CAD programs. I'm still trying to get that to kind of work with Easel, so it's still kind of a work in progress getting the G-code files to work within this. But yeah, that's just another extra area. Another area to explore is if you have multiple elements of your design that you want to add. Say you have your first design here, and you want to add another second design for another piece of material. You just click on that, and this gives you another design area with the same parameters up here of your material size. So you also have under here options under the File menu. New, which is just going to create a new design like that. An open function, import scalable vector graphics files. There's a share function, so if you want to share your project with a link, you can do that, and it will create a web link with that. Under the edit tool, there's lots of different things where you can cut, copy, and paste things, select everything, flip things horizontally, vertically. If you wanted to add extra design elements, you can send things to the front or the back, behind, or to the front of this. So say if I wanted to have this heart inserted into there, like that. And then I went up to edit and I said, send backward. So that would send it to the back, as you can see over here, of your main design. So that's an option right there. Oops. Get rid of that. Doing Control Z. Yeah, so you've got lots of different options to edit all your design materials here. Centered material is pretty good too, in terms of getting everything centered to the size of your material. Under machine, when you are designing things in Carvey, or in Easel, you want to make sure that you choose Carvey instead of these other machines, because this has a specific size parameters that you can only work with in Easel for the Carvey. So you want to make sure when you're designing to choose Carvey's the machine. You can also go under help, check out the community forum, help guides, troubleshooting. Community forum is really interesting to kind of poke your head around to see what kind of other projects people are using with the Carvey. And then of course there is a little shop tab. If you click that, that's just going to take you to areas where you can basically purchase things from Inventables. So you don't really need to use that as a free subscriber. But and then, like I went over, here is your measurement tool, material dimensions that you're going to import first. You choose your material type. The material that I put in the machine today, thought it was the closest to birch plywood, so I just chose that. But here's these other materials that you can choose. Where you do your bit size is right there. And then under cut settings, I'm just going with automatic for both of these. This is basically, it's just recommended values from the company for whatever material you use, but you can also change those values if you click on manual, and then you can change those speeds, say like slow down the machine, the feed rate, and the plunge rate, to see if that helps cut things better. So, all right, so when you're happy with all your design elements, and everything looks good on this area, you're ready to carve. So what you want to do then is click on Carve. What it's going to do is basically run you through a few procedural things that you need to click through just to make sure that you've got the right material thickness, to make sure that your material is clamped right onto the workspace area, and make sure it's nice and secure so the material doesn't flip up when it's carving, because if it does do that, you kind of just end up having issues with your carve and having to restart it. So if you click that, click continue, it's going to ask you, do you want to do which pass you want to do first. So we're going to do the roughing pass first, and then after that cut and carve, we're going to do the detail pass. So I'll click on continue. Make sure you got the 1/8 inch straight cut bit, which is on there. Confirm bit size, and then when you're ready, just click carve. So during this section, I ended up turning off the audio of the cut because it was just super loud and not very pleasant to listen to. But as you can see, once the Carvey starts going, it kind of just does its own thing. You've got the end mill cutting into the material, and then it just does it on several passes until you reach the depth of cut that you set initially in the software. But what's really nice about the Carvey and machines like this is basically once you get your cut and your cut settings all set to go and hit carve, you can kind of just let the machine do its thing and kind of check in on it every couple of minutes. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but you definitely want to be in the area once it's carving, but you can kind of just watch it do its thing. So pretty cool. All right, so here is the final product. Looks pretty good. Might need a little bit of sanding on some parts, but otherwise turned out the way I wanted. It actually took 2 tries, and it's a good sort of lesson for folks that essentially what was happening was that the collet, or the bit, wasn't fully inserted into the collet. So I was having some issues and difficulties with the cut initially. So that's always a good reminder to make sure that you've got everything set up to go before you do your cut. So first time around didn't quite work, and then I figured out what was going on, and we were able to get it like this. So that's the end of this video. Please keep in touch with us. Look at our website at MissoulaPublicLibrary.org for updates onto when we're going to be open again. And by the time you can come and utilize the Carvey, we will hopefully be in our new building just across the way, just east of us. So thanks again for watching, and take care.